actually even got a jelly bean jar to kind of track my progress. So it was one of the national or provincial team coaches where it was like, okay, for every workout that you complete that's like in your program, put a jelly bean in. For every sailing day, put a jelly bean in.
Excellence is about standing, and excellence is a requirement for your dream to come true.
I started sailing when I was 7 years old. I grew up on the island of Barbados, and my family had no sailing or like sports background really. So my brother started, and then I kind of learned. Probably my first memory that really sticks out is being afraid of the dark water when I was learning how to sail. And it's just I was so lucky and like privileged to be growing up in Barbados, and like I got scared when I couldn't see the bottom, which is insane. I just thought there was like scary animals, sharks, and it was really scary to not see the bottom. That's probably my first memory of sailing.
Okay, so not the most joyous memory, but still you went over it. So yeah, you said your family or parents were not into sailing or like sports in general. So what brought you and your brother to starting or trying it out? Did you just because you were in Barbados and it was kind of the thing to do, pretty much?
Yeah, sailing is a pretty small community in Barbados, and so actually we got introduced to it from coming to Canada. Well, my brother did, so he actually got sent off to summer camp one
Okay.
summer. He got sent off for a month, and he was exposed to lake sailing and just I don't know, really enjoyed it. And yeah, he went to Camp Tawingo in Canada, came back and said, the sailing thing's pretty cool. Dad, I'd love to learn. And my dad was like, that sounds like a great father-son activity. I think he was like 8 years old at the time. And they went off to another island to learn how to sail and started to fall in love. And then when I got a little bit older, I was then, because 7 is generally like the age that you kind of do go into the learn to sail program.
Yeah.
And at age 7, I was like, hey, my brother's doing it. I'm the younger sister. It's time to try that as well. And my whole family fell in love. Like we all learned at the same time, basically.
Nice. So you fell in love with doing it for fun, most likely at the beginning, especially if it's a family thing. Was there a tipping point or a moment where you remember it became more than just having fun, maybe on the weekend or after school?
It mostly started off as fun. I've always been a competitive person in like anything that I do. Family game nights got intense. Physical fights would break out between my brother and I. And I think that's probably when he started getting into the competitive space that I was thinking, you know what, I've got to start getting into the competitive space
Yeah.
and to try to beat my brother. So in the boat that I learned to sail is called the Optimist. It's like a kid's boat. It's basically like a bathtub. You can only
Okay.
sail it up to the age of 15. And generally, it's pretty popular to like go and compete in it. And I remember I qualified for my first world championships at age 10. I was the last person to make the team. Very young, very inexperienced, did not do well in my first competition, but it was a great opportunity for my family to travel as a as one and to go like kind of use sailing as an excuse to go travel and have a family trip. And that's basically how it started. And then we just really leaned in. Like every family vacation was around sailing.
Nice. So you said you started around 7, 8, and at 10 you were doing your first world championship. So first of all, I didn't know there were world championship that young, but still, it's a pretty fulgurant or pretty crazy fast way to get to the top, at least at that level. Were you like naturally talented in that?
Yeah, I would say I had both my brother and I had a natural talent for sailing. I mean, I think we're just water people as well. Like growing up in Barbados, my parents would describe me as a fish, where I was just always in the water, on the water, around the water. It was very much part of our like family dynamic as well.
So what is talent for a sailor? What does it take if you had like three top criteria for someone in the street to say that person would be a great talent for
That's a good
sailing?
question. I don't know if I've ever actually been asked that question before. Let me think. For someone to be talented in the sport of sailing, I think they have to, at least in the boat that I sail, I'm a single handed person or a single handed competitor. So I think you need to be able to have like good motor skills, good awareness, good like self awareness and self capability. You have to be pretty independent because you're kind of calling everything yourself. You don't really lean on any other people or teammates. I think when it comes to sailing, just the natural, maybe like ability to control the boat and
Yeah.
understanding the wind. So kind of we use the wind and the water to like propel our boat, basically. And you can really tell when a kid has a natural ability to control that boat. I remember that when I was coaching the Optimist, it was just you could tell when they were just like doing things right and they were really coachable. And then probably the last thing of a natural ability is the ability to read the wind and the waves. We kind of stare at the water and the clouds and everything.
Yeah.
And some kids or some people, you can tell they have a talent for reading the wind. And I probably
Yeah,
did that
that
from young.
was one of the point that I was thinking about. It's like for me, laying there, I mean, there are lots of activities like paragliding, like flying airplanes or small airplanes or sailing that I figure one of the most important things is probably just understanding your environment, whether it be clouds, wind, currents, waves, everything. That's, I mean, it doesn't do everything, of course. There's a mental aspect, there's a physical aspect, but it seems like if you don't understand the very basics, or just don't have it in you, it's probably you're not going anywhere.
Yeah,
I fly. It feels like if you're comfortable, you feel a gust, then you have a natural reflex of moving something in a direction. It's not learned. It's just here. It's just a
exactly.
reflex that you have or you don't have, basically, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's a really good question, though.
Uh, okay, cool. So you seem to have those traits. I read something. I think that or it's a quote from you where you said that um, you had talents, but a big lack of like work ethics or something. So it's not probably not something you realized when you were 10 years old. But yeah, when did you realize that, and when did that start making a difference?
I probably didn't realize, well, I never knew how much work was really entailed, needed. Sailing had always been something fun. It was a way to travel. I was always doing it with my friends. And I guess when I started to kind of get into the provincial level or a national team level, then I started to realize you have to do a lot of other things outside of sailing. So it was the physical aspect, like I was always being held back in the windier conditions because I just physically wasn't fit enough or the right size. And then there's so many other things off, I guess now in Olympic sailing that there's so many things outside of the water that you need to do. But yeah, I've really hated the gym. I mean, it's something that I've really tried to create that habit to find a love for like working out in different ways, from biking to finding different ways to like create goals around gym training, and that discipline and habit. That's something I've worked on really hard, especially for the last 10 years.
Mm.
But yeah, I just wanted to go sailing. I didn't want to go work out and do a gym session. I just wanted to go out in the water. But, talent only goes so far, and you have to put in a lot of work to get to a certain level.
And would you say that today, with the result you have or can still have, um, is it mostly because of the work ethics? Is it mostly because of your talent? Or of course, you'll answer it's a mix of everything. But what would you say if there was one thing that you think you could get better at? For example, what would it be as of today?
Yeah, I mean, when you get to Olympic level, everyone's talented. Everyone works hard. Obviously, there's people that work harder, but it is a full time effort to get to an Olympic Games. I think the difference for me, and maybe it's something that sets me apart, is a little bit about the mindset. That's something my coach and I have really worked on for the last, I don't know, 8 years that we've been working together, is just kind of having that like holistic mindset, because everything I do bleeds into my sailing, into competition and daily training. And just kind of that growth mindset, I would say, has been the number one factor, I think, for me in getting to helping me get to where I am today and continuing to progress as an athlete.
Uh-huh. And what was the moment? So that's the, like you said, the growth mindset that you've acquired along the way. But in terms of timing, when did you decide or realize that this would be your thing? That it was not just like family vacation anymore and stuff like that, and that you basically would put your all in for decades to come.
Yeah. So I've had a different journey I guess, to an Olympic Games in that. So I was really competitive as a youth sailor, and I loved sailing, and yeah, I loved to win, and kind of had that hate to lose mindset. And it actually led me to quitting sport. I came second
Yep.
at the youth nationals when I was 16, and I it broke me coming second place. And I just said, I hate sports, or I hate sailing, and you know what? Next summer I'm going to volleyball camp. I'm done with the sport of sailing, and I had stopped. I had actually gone to go coach to back into that youth boat, the Optimist that I had learned to sail because I had such a great time in that. And in that time, and as I was coaching, I was just kind of sailing for fun on weekends or weeknights with the other instructors and coaches. And I ended up being an alternate for the Canada Summer Games. And there I got to listen to a bunch of athletes speak, one of them being Rosie McLennan. And I can remember the exact moment of when I'm sitting in the crowd and she's talking about her Olympic journey. I think this was 2014. So she had just won a gold medal in Rio, and she was gearing up for, oh no, sorry, and won a gold medal in London, and she was gearing up for the Rio
Okay.
Olympics. And I remember sitting there being like, what am I doing? Like, I want to win a gold medal. I want to do that. And because of her speaking about her experience, she literally sparked my Olympic dream, and I wouldn't be here without her and for her words. And that was the moment where I was like, okay, like, let's figure out how to do that. How do I get to Olympic Games? I reached out to provincial team coaches and was like, what are the steps that I've got to do? First get onto the provincial team, then to the national team, and then how do I seek out this like Olympic Games? Because it's not an overnight thing. There is a process that you have to get to that level.
Yeah.
But I can remember that exact moment of sitting down, just like having the epiphany. I think I was like 18 or 19 years old. Like I was in university, so I was very much late to the Olympic dream. Um, I suppose so many people are thinking about it when they're like 7 years old, which I didn't
Yeah.
have.
And so going back to the moment when you were 16 and you finished second at a pretty high level, and for you, it's a disappointment in a sense. Do you think now looking back, you were still pretty young, so there might have been a bit of a impulsive reaction to something that was disappointing. Do you, and I'm no one really to ask that, but do you think it's you were just disappointed and figured that's not for me, or it was just not realizing or not wanting to tell yourself I cannot get to the next level and I'm just gonna quit? Or I don't know. Looking back, what do you think was the actual, yeah, the actual reason behind wanting to quit? Because you said I'm done with the sport, but at the same time you went back into coaching, so you like the sport itself. Yeah, just curious.
Yeah, no, totally. I think when I think back at it, I was so focused on, well, I guess the first step of it all was I was having so much fun in the Optimist, which was up to the age of 15. When you graduate from the Optimist, I moved into the boat that I sail now. And from then, it becomes a little bit more intense. It's more racing. I didn't have as many friends. It wasn't as much like friend or like I wasn't having fun, I think was the
Yeah,
biggest part of it. And so when I was kind of competing at the like youth world or youth national level, I just wasn't having fun. And the only way I would have fun is by winning. And when I
yeah.
just lost that competition, because I was winning that competition until the last day. And so
Okay.
moving down to second place, and that was just a heartbreak for me. And then I just said, you know what? I'm not having fun. What's the point in doing all of this? I'm having fun playing volleyball right now. So like, let's just go try that for a summer because I had done sailing for so many summers in a row, and that's probably what it was. I just lost the fun of doing the sport and sailing, and I just thought, what's the point anymore?
Yeah. And so you lost the fun, but in 20 14, I think, when you have that spark, that light again. Um, it's not just that you want to have fun, right? You said what sparks me is getting the gold medal, whatever it takes, pretty much. So you kind of maybe your mind shifted into it's not just about having fun; it's about a journey and what might arrive at the end, even if there's less fun, but still you need to try to keep it in, or otherwise you're just doing it for nothing, pretty much.
Yeah, I mean, when you're a youth athlete, I mean, you're so mature and you don't really have much perspective. So you're
Yeah,
just thinking kind of like in that moment and now. And when you have a tough competition, it can be so easy to quit because you don't have that maturity or that like perspective. Going into coaching created that fun aspect again and just relearning or just reloving the sport. And then when you marry that with more of a purpose of like, okay, I want to go compete at Olympic Games and win a gold medal. And like Canada's never won a gold medal in the sport of sailing. So like the hunt of like creating history as well was just so alluring to me and something that I've just been striving for. And that really just drove everything. That was like the moment. Be like, okay, let's do this.
And so from that moment, what happens, let's say, in the next hour, in the next day, and the next 6 months to go and start that journey?
Yeah, so I immediately from that weekend, well, I went back to university and then I started calling the national team and the provincial team coaches, being like, okay, I'm ready, because I had known them for a long time. That I had known them as a youth competitor, and I said, what do I need to do? And they said, okay, you need to put on 10 pounds of muscle. You need a physical trainer. Like you need to start getting into shape, because I was in first year university and I hadn't seen a gym in probably at least 6 months. And I was like, okay, like what are the steps? Get these competitions, these training camps, and they were so amazing and really, really helpful of kind of lining things out for me. And I actually even got a jelly bean jar to kind of track my progress. So it was one of the national or provincial team coaches where it was like, okay, for every workout that you complete that's like in your program, put a jelly bean in. For every sailing day, put a jelly bean in. And I had almost got that jar full when it came to the national qualifying regatta. And I was like, okay, here we go. This is my opportunity to qualify for the national team. And I was down in Miami and I was in the contention for qualifying for the national team. And then a very small, like 2-inch block broke on my sail in one day. And it happens. There's equipment failure every now and again. But that equipment failure had led me to basically getting some like races that don't count. Or I guess, how do I explain it? It's like races that you had to count, but you didn't get like a proper score for. So I collected a lot of points, which dropped me very much in the ranking. And I missed the national team because of that. And that was super heartbreaking as well, because I had put so much work. My jelly bean jar was full. I was ready. I was in contention. And then one small block broke and I lost my national team chances. And back then, I think that was like a $12,000 difference, probably, in terms of support given to you. And as heartbreaking as that was, I became an identified athlete for the national team. So I got to go and be coached by the national team and train with the national team. I just didn't get the funding of the national team. So I learned my lesson in that always make sure your equipment's ready to go. And like, I'm probably one of the most prepared people in the boat park, but I still got the opportunity to train with the national team. And then the next year, I made the national team.
Nice. So let's just do a small aparté or a small interlude. If you want to introduce a bit of the technical aspect, because so you're a sailor. Sorry, most people that I interview are track, swimming, etc. People know what it is. Sailing, we know what it is in general, but how? Yeah, what is it? What is the specific category that you compete in? And yeah, how are the rankings made? If you have 1 or 2 minutes to summarize it.
Yeah, totally. So I sail the women's single-handed dinghy. It's called the Ilka 6, formerly known as the Laser. It was actually designed in Canada, and
Okay.
you probably find them at like cottages and stuff around. And it's about 14 feet. It's one sail. I sail by myself, and we compete in regattas where it's a series of races. So typically at like the World Cup or World Championship stage or Olympic Games, it's 10 races over 5 days. We do 2 races a day. Each race takes about 45 minutes to an hour. And then we have like one final race, which is just the top 10 competitors. It's only 25-minute race and it's double points. So a lot of like shuffling and jostling kind of happens for medals in that final race. But we are an endurance sport in that it is essentially 5 to 6 days long of competition wherever you are in the world. Our our like playing field is the ocean or a river or a lake,
Yeah.
and that could change every single day. So that's kind of the unique aspect of sailing is that we are very much like based in nature, and nature changes every day,
Yeah.
and we kind of have to adapt to those conditions, to those waves, to those systems, to put together a good series over that 5 or 6 days of competing.
Nice. And are you now okay with dark waters? Is that
I am
something?
good with dark waters. Good with dark
So
waters. Not good with the cold water. I think just growing up from Barbados, I don't do well with the cold water. And then I picked up sailing one summer in Holland. Just like was traumatic and it was so cold. And I picked up Raynaud's like syndrome where my hands got numb really quickly and then they stay numb, which obviously in the sport of sailing is a challenge because I need to use my hands constantly.
yeah.
So it's like a whole thing, and I wear like fleece lined gloves when it's cold. But
Ah,
sometimes I just simply can't feel my hands, and it's not fun.
yeah, I have the same thing, and I don't sail. I have that syndrome as well. So as soon as it's below 0 Celsius, I'm like start having a hard time moving my fingers. So I can only imagine when you rely on 90% of what you do is with your hand. I would assume. So yeah, probably pretty hard stuff to deal with. What's the coldest water that you can or have sailed on in?
I have no idea. A couple years ago, we sailed in Poland in October. The air temperature was 8 degrees, and I almost died. I don't know
Jesus.
what the water was. I don't. I never know. I don't want to know if it's cold. It's just. Ugh. Yeah.
Plus you have the wind factors plus your speed plus everything. What's the not average speed doesn't make much sense, but can you give an idea of the speed that the boat can reach? I guess you're talking knots, right?
Yeah, I actually don't know. We had a competition actually, like on social media, of trying to find the fastest person. I think I'm probably gonna get it wrong, but like maybe it's in the like 10 knot range is the maximum speed. I sail the slow boat of the Olympics. So we
Okay.
have like 10 different disciplines in Olympic sailing. I sail like the slowest boat where it's more about tactics and strategy and positioning against other people. While some boats it's really just like about your speed.
Okay. So what made you choose that category, or was it the category that chose you in a sense?
Probably chose me. It was the one that was available to me. It's the most accessible one. I could sail it by myself, and I was tall, or I am tall, so that was kind of really
Okay,
good for the boat that I sail as well.
understand. Um, so you said now back to your Olympic dream journey. You were still in at university. Did you end up dropping out of university, or did you finish your studies there?
Yeah, I finished. I went to the University of Guelph, and I took 5 years to finish my degree, the 4 year degree. So I balanced school and sailing. In the fall and spring, I would drive to Toronto, which is like an hour drive. Probably like 2 to 3 times a week. And then I remember showing up at the first week of classes, meeting my professors and be like, hi, like, my name's Sarah. I'm on the national team for sailing. This is my schedule. I have to be in Florida these dates. Can I take this course? And I think every single time they're like, yes, they were so accommodating. Professors were so nice and that I could like kind of move around the schedule to make sure that I could compete the course. And I just sometimes I did reduce course loads just because it would have been too much with
Okay.
with sailing. And then I took one semester off in the lead up to the 2016 Olympics to help my teammate prepare. But yeah, finished my university degree, and I know that was really important with my parents.
Yeah, I can imagine. And did you end up getting into the professional world in a sense, or can you leave off the sport and kind of focus on that for Olympics and stuff?
Yeah, sailing requires full time devotion and dedication. I did a marketing degree, but I haven't, yeah, worked corporately. So sailing is my full time job, and that's kind of like my own little mini business in a
Mhm.
sense.
Nice. Um, so you went to the Olympics. You made it 2020. Yeah. Is it just getting there? Was it the end goal for you, or once you knew you would go there, you had that new goal and you ended up sixth, which is one, if not the best result for individual sailing in Canada? Well, how did you receive that result, and did it spark another motivation for another 4 years of hard work leading into Paris?
Yeah, I had always thought that Tokyo was going to be my like one and only Olympics. It just was like, okay, gonna go to the Olympics. I want to win a medal. But I don't know. I never had thought about Paris. But in the lead up to Tokyo, and I guess it was a COVID Olympics, and we had postponement. There was a lot of things in the lead up to Tokyo.
Hmm.
I was just thinking, I'm not even close to being done. I have so much more left as an athlete, and I think I can get continue to progress. And so when I got to the Olympics, I have always viewed an Olympic Games of like you're either an Olympic medalist or you're an Olympian. The results, like my family is kind of, I guess, more cutthroat in that like the result doesn't matter as much. But going in and competing in the games, I entered that final race, that medal race, in fourth position with a mathematical chance of winning any color of medal, and that was extremely stressful. Nothing in life could have prepared me for that kind of stress. Like I didn't sleep.
Ah,
And the Olympic medal was so close. Like I literally had a really, really good chance of getting a bronze medal. And the race, that final race, did not go the way that I wanted to. Like I can't even watch it to this day because I'm so upset about it. Um,
upset against yourself or against the just external
Myself,
factors?
yeah, just myself. The race, I've always struggled with that like final medal race. It's completely different race setup and format than our typical competition. So I've never really felt comfortable with it. And then when you don't feel comfortable with that medal race, and then you're in a position where you're like, oh my god, I could win an Olympic medal. The stress and everything just kind of got to me, and I didn't sail well within it. I didn't make good decisions. I was kind of having like an out of body experience within that race, and I finished that race, and I had moved down to sixth place, and in the end, it was like a medal or nothing. So fourth, sixth, it didn't matter to me. I was only focusing on a medal. So not getting that was heartbreaking. And I remember just bawling my eyes out for like at least an hour or two from that race. The Canadian team, and the chef de mission had like welcomed me back on the water, and I just
Hmm.
like I couldn't even look at them. I was like, I just need a moment. I was so overwhelmed with emotion. I had basically kept it all in, and like for the most part kept pretty level headed throughout the whole competition, and that just kind of like released everything, and I was an absolute wreck. So as proud as I am, like if you had told 16-year-old Sarah that she was going to be fighting for a medal in the Olympic Games, she'd be stoked. She'd be so proud. She wouldn't believe it. But being there and being so close um, was heartbreaking, but also like lit the fire within me towards Paris. And I remember being in the mixed zone with the media, and they're like, "Are you thinking about Paris?" And I was like, "Yep, I'm in. Like, time to learn some French. Here we go." Like, there wasn't a doubt in my mind that I was going to continue on to Paris.
Nice. I love the what you brought up about like 16-year-old you would be so proud already. That's a question that I ask more and more. Usually it's more like 10-year-old you. If that person saw you today, would she be proud? And that's something that helps also rationalize some of the disappointments we have. Um, Looking back, do you know you said you didn't sail well, but do you think it's because you were not prepared for such a high stake race? Was it purely mental? Yeah, are you able to analyze that and say if I were to go back to that race, I know I'll get the podium.
Yeah, I mean, in the lead up to Tokyo Olympics, like we only have so many competitions with that medal race format. It's not every single competition that we compete in. It's like World Cups or some World Championships. So I would say I was pretty inexperienced, especially to the people that were also competing in those Olympic Games. Like we had people that this was their third Olympics, and some of them it was like their second or third medal.
Mhm.
So I was relatively inexperienced going into that race, and I'd only been in that scenario or in a medal race a handful of times and not usually even competing for a medal. So that kind of pressure was new to me. And that was probably the biggest takeaway from the Tokyo Olympics was like, I've got to get more into medal races. I got to experience more dealing with that pressure of like being on the podium or just off the podium and trying to figure out how to set up the like not just the medal race, but even just the like lead up to the medal race. And that's something we've really tried to work on and to really have a lot of awareness when I am in that medal race. Be like, okay, let's play out these scenarios and let's try to keep as like calm, cool, collected as much as we can in this like stress scenario so that when it comes in the Paris Olympics, that it's not something new because it was completely new to me in Tokyo.
Nice. Um, so yeah, 2024 Paris. If I'm not mistaken, you qualified, so you'll go there. So the first question is, where is it happening? I would assume not in Paris, probably somewhere on the west side of France. And yeah, what's your well your goal? Not necessarily not necessary to say what your goal is, but how is your mindset? Where do you stand right now in your prep to the Olympics?
Yeah, so the sailing is going to be in Marseille, so it's
Oh,
like South France.
I was born.
Um, yeah, it's really nice. I've spent a lot of time there so far. I think I've done over 50 days on the water
Wow.
already. Yeah, my first time was 2 years ago, actually.
Okay.
So we spend in the sport of sailing. It's really important for us to kind of spend the time in the environment and learn the wind and the waves and everything because each venue is unique. And so we're going to be in Marseille. It's extremely hot. I am ready for like a sweaty Olympic Games European summer. And I mean, I've never been afraid of stating my goals. Like, I want to win an Olympic gold medal. Or any medal would be great, any color. Yeah, I'm not afraid to state that goal. And even if I fail, I'll still be really proud of whatever result that I get. Because I think in the last couple of years, I've really grown up, I guess, from Tokyo to Paris. And I've just gained so much perspective in that like so much of it, and this is what kind of what Rosie talked about when she inspired me about her Olympics, is so much of it comes from the journey, and I'm so proud of what I've put together in this like journey towards an Olympic Games.
Nice. And are you now using yourself this experience to motivate those potential 16-year-old sailors that decided to move away from the sport and trying to get them back in because they have potential?
Yeah, I mean, I never had a sailor other than my brother to really look up to as a kid. I never had a female sailor role model, so I try to share as much as I can because, yeah, I would like love for people to try the sport of sailing, like even just go after any goal that they have, whether it's Olympic Games or Youth Worlds or something. And yeah, I try to share as much as I can so that it could be like, she does it, like I can maybe do that too. Because yeah, the sport of sailing is so cool and it's kind of like a niche sport and not, I guess, on television as much. But yeah, I'm really proud of, I guess, everything that I've done and continue to do in this like striving for excellence in an Olympic Games.
Very cool. Um, I read something, I think it's on your website maybe, or an article that you've had and I think it's important to mention because it shows the uh, relentlessness that elite athletes have, that you have a condition. I would assume the name is way too complicated to pronounce. Basically, you have reduces the amount of hemoglobin in the body. That's pretty much what I read wrote down. But that impacts probably your ability to do like extreme efforts and stuff like that. So how did you overcome that? And yeah, did it prevent you at some point in your life to achieve result that you were targeting?
Yeah, I have a genetic blood disorder. It's called alpha thalassemia. It's basically, yeah, I have lower and smaller red blood cells in my body, which carries oxygen.
Hmm.
I discovered it when I was in high school. I was always anemic and really struggling for energy, and I was just like, why am I still anemic? and we did some testing and realized that I have this blood disorder. It's something that I wouldn't say limits me, but something I have to be aware of when I'm training because I like I just feel chronic fatigue, I would say, and
Hmm.
I'm just always keeping an eye on like training levels and everything, like a fitness test or how much travel or something. Like I just have to have a little bit more awareness than the average person. But yeah, it's something that my team is aware of, and we balance and we manage, and just I just kind of check in on my blood work every couple months and just double check that we're like good to go. But yeah, it's just something that I have to keep an eye on as an athlete.
And is that preventing you from? Is this a roadblock to some of the stuff that you try to do, or is it something that you have under control completely, and now it's just part of your like your routines and stuff?
Yeah, it's just part of routine. I have it under control. That's just where we just check in with my body and check in with the training load and just making sure that yeah, I keep my energy up throughout the whole year.
Cool. Um, so you answered half of the question that's coming, which is what, let's say 10 or no, let's say 16-year-old, the moment, or 14, when you decide to move away from the sport. If you could yourself today go back there in front of that same person when she finishes second and she should have won, if you had like 15 seconds with her, what would you tell yourself?
Okay, question. I mean, the first thing is like second at youth nationals is an incredible result, and I probably would say to her, like, hey, look at what you've done. Second at Youth National is incredible. You've just qualified for this Youth Worlds. You should probably go to that because that's an incredible opportunity, which 16-year-old Sarah did not. Um, you have so much to learn. You're still so early in the sport. Why don't you just start working on becoming a more well rounded sailor so that this final day where you've lost this competition, where you struggled, why don't you just start, going to the gym where it's when it's a windy day that this you're not going to struggle as much, um, and that you can just become more well rounded in all conditions.
Very cool. um what can we wish you, pretty obvious question, in the next 6 or 12 months? Too easy, I guess. And where should people follow you? You said it's not much televised or broadcasted. Where should we follow the Olympics and other competition that you will be part of?
Yeah, I guess to follow me, I'm on Instagram, TikTok, any like social media from Sarah Douglas or Sarah Douglas Sailing. In terms of stuff that's covered on the Olympics, I mean, yes, we will have some television broadcasts. It's just not like a swimming or
Yeah.
track and field. Sail Canada is always really active on trying to share the links if there are any YouTube live streams,
Hmm.
and CBC Sports will cover some stuff as well. So Sail Canada always kind of posts anything that's going on within our sport and what's happening with me. And then I have a website, Sarah Douglas Sailing. And I also have a monthly newsletter that you can subscribe to as well,
Okay.
where it just gets like updates and more like behind the scenes stuff of what's happening with me.
Nice. Very cool. um if you had one person in mind, one athlete, sorry, in mind, that you think would have a at least as interesting as you of a story to tell, who would come to mind?
Ooh, that's so good. Oh, I have so many friends. Are you looking for any sport or is this sailing
Yeah,
specific?
any sports.
Okay.
If it's setting, that's great
I,
because I know nothing about it.
yeah. Um, well, I guess in terms of sailing, we just had two sisters qualify for the Olympic Games, their first Olympic Games, Antonia and Georgia Lewin LaFrance. They are heading, yeah, they just qualified like a couple weeks ago to their first Olympic Games. So I think that story is pretty cool with two sisters. I don't know in terms of athletes if you've had Sarah Mitten on.
Nope.
She's a shot putter. She's awesome. I roomed with her at the Team Canada like summit, and yeah, we're like, I mean, her name's Sarah, so she's awesome. And
Oh yeah.
then um, Yeah, I always really like listening to Melissa Humana Paredes from beach volleyball as well.
Melissa, beach volley. That's a lot of sport. That's perfect. I have a lot of reach out to do then.
Yeah.
Wonderful. And the last one is one thing that I can finally show off. I built that in my office. It's my what I call the wall of fame or wall of sport, whatever it might be. And I just hang stuff from athletes that came on the podcast. So, is there anything that you think of from your career? I don't know what it could be. Not a sail itself, but not a boat, but anything
I
that you
wear
might have used.
like I wear like a bib
Okay.
on top, like
Yep.
it has like Sail Canada and Canada. Probably that would work. That would probably be like the yeah.
Wonderful.
That would probably
That would be great. So where should I send you the prepaid envelope? What city do you reside in when you're not traveling the world?
New York. I would say is
Oh, you stay in New York. Okay, I thought you were just there for a competition. Very cool. All right, so we'll coordinate then.
I leave tomorrow, or sorry, tonight for Spain. So this is kind of like my base. My fiance had to move for work, and so this is like my unofficial base, I guess, um, when I'm not in Europe, basically.
Sweet. Okay, do you sail in New York?
No,
Somewhere? No.
no,
Oh,
I
okay, it's
fly.
just okay. Perfect.
I fly
Wonderful.
a lot. Yeah, I actually, even when I lived in Toronto, I would maybe do 10 days a year in Toronto. Um, so I'll be going back to Toronto to do some sailing in the lead up to the Olympics, but
Okay.
yeah, it's mostly European based.
Nice. Sweet. Thank you so much, Sarah. Will be cheering for you, hopefully on CBC or sometime in August when you'll be in Marseille. I'll ask my friend. Lots of friends of mine live in Marseille, so I'll tell them to
Oh, good.
go and cheer on site.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. This has been great, and thanks for
Thank you so much.
featuring so many athletes. This is an awesome passion project.
Thank you. Very much appreciated. Cheers. Bye bye.
Bye.